Welcome to today's webinar. We are doing From Surviving to Thriving, a roadmap to financial wellness. It is a first part of a three-part financial webinar series with Debra Jacobs. I'm Cynthia Cross. I'm the services manager at HFA. I'm going to do a quick introduction to HFA, the program that's kind of sponsoring this webinar, and then our incredible speaker, Debra, will take it off to a very valuable presentation. So HFA is a national nonprofit organization that was founded in 1994. We assist, educate, and advocate for the bleeding disorders community. Our Helping Forward program is how we are able to do this presentation today. We work to assist families as they transition from financial crisis to financial stability. The Helping Forward program also provides a job readiness grant, which provides up to $1,000 towards a course, training program, or certification that can help adults with bleeding disorders or carriers gain a promotion, sustainable employment, or help those looking for a little extra income on the side. College courses are considered for the grant, and applications are open, and we process them as soon as they are received. So feel free to go to our website and apply today. And then we just want to thank you for taking the time to join the webinar today. We know your nights are busy, so we greatly appreciate it. And then make sure that you are connecting with us on social media, our website, and then if you have any questions, please always feel free to reach out to our services team at helpinghands@hemophiliafed.org, or you can always call our office. And now on to our wonderful speaker, Debra Jacobs. She is the founder of Money Smart for Life, a financial coaching business helping people overcome shame, fear, and overwhelm and overwhelm around money and take action to master their personal finances. She has developed financial literacy curricula, taught classes to teens and adults, presented financial wellness workshops around the country, and worked with many clients to achieve positive, measurable results. Those results include, among others, moving beyond limiting money mindsets, becoming intentional with values-based budgeting, making and carrying out savings and debt paydown plans, and achieving financial goals. Debra is also a published author and editor and holds an Ed.M from Harvard University's Graduate School of Education. Now I will stop sharing so that Debra can take us to her presentation.
Well, thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. And thank you all for being here. I'm really excited about this workshop tonight. And I am going to share my screen. So let me just get my slides going. And I just want to, where's my slideshow little thingy majingy? Oh, here we go. It's already up there. Okay, so From Surviving to Thriving, a roadmap for financial wellness. Some of what we talk about tonight will hopefully be valuable to you immediately, and maybe some of it down the road. So let me just give a little bit, round out the background a little bit, and tell you a little bit about how I got here. So I am a financial coach and accredited financial counselor. But before I became a financial coach, I spent many years as a preschool owner. I was a single mom to two now young adults, but when they were growing up, I told myself the story, and it really was only a story, that I'm bad with money, I'm afraid of finances, I don't have the bandwidth for anything but my kids and my business, and my finances kind of fell by the wayside. I did what many, many people do. I didn't save much. I didn't invest much, got into a little bit of debt. And then when my kids got a little bit older and a little space opened up in my life, I decided it's time. So I sort of held my nose and said, I really have to learn about this, but I didn't want to. So I started taking classes and reading books and listening to podcasts and joining groups. And who knew I would love it so much, and it would be so fascinating, and I would start transforming my own life and kind of wishing I had somebody back then like me now to give me a few tips about things to do with my financial life to move me forward. So that's just a little bit of background. So the first thing I want to do is tell you a story. So I have a client who got himself into financial trouble because he was always the person with his friends who was buying everybody the drinks and the dinner and paying for everything. And the reason for this is that he grew up in an affluent community, but his family was not affluent. So everybody else always had the right sneakers and went on the fancy trips, and he didn't. And he always felt less than because of that. And so he was trying to make up for that later in life by being the person who splurged. And that was causing him some financial pain and getting in the way of reaching his goals. And the point of that story is that we all have stories. We all grew up in a family that conveyed their messages about money. So I'd like you to start by just thinking about what's your story. And is your story holding you back financially, or is it moving you ahead? If you're super lucky, very few of us are, you grew up in a family that gave you some really great thoughts about money. You're capable, you're able to make what you need to make, you're able to save enough, you're able to live the kind of life you hope to live. But many of us didn't grow up with those kinds of stories. And so the main question I want you to think of is, how can you change that story from something like, I'll never be good with money, into a question, how can I get good with money? So let's look at some typical money stories. I'll never be good with money. That was mine for a while. Being an adult means having debt. Many of us just take this for granted. We're going to have car payments. We're going to have credit card debt. And I'd like you to ask yourself the question, how can I be an adult without debt? Or only with debt, maybe student loan debt, or maybe a mortgage, debt that moves me forward towards where I want to go. My health challenges prevent me from being good with money. That can be a big one for a lot of people. And again, you can ask the question, given my health challenges, how can I still be good with money? Good people think about changing the world, not about money. I hear this a lot. I'm a helper, I'm a nurse, I'm a teacher. I can't be good with money. I'm never going to make a lot. I'm a social worker. I'm never going to make a lot of money because I'm a helper. And I also hear this from creatives. I'm an artist. I can't think about money. And again, the question is, how can you be both? How can you be a helper or an artist and still manage your money well? Some people have the story, spending money on myself is not okay. And some people have the story, spending money to enjoy today is way more important than saving money for tomorrow. You know, do any of these stories kind of resonate with you? And then finally, another common one is, all my problems would be solved if only I made more money. And sometimes we think that's true, and it may be or it may not be. But before we think, let's think a little bit more carefully about that one. All my problems would be solved if only I made more money. So is that really true? It might be. It might be, but let's look at the idea of wealth or of being rich. So I'd like to introduce you to two people, Daniel and Martina. So Daniel is a hedge fund manager, makes a lot of money, drives a fancy car, sends his kids to private school, lives in a very big house. Martina makes a much more modest salary, drives a Honda Civic, sends her kids to public school, and lives in a smaller house. So who do you think is richer, Daniel or Martina? And you might want to put it in the chat, or so let's see if anybody has any ideas about which one of these people is richer, Daniel or Martina. Well, the common response that I often get to this question is Daniel, of course, he makes so much more money. He obviously has all the trappings of wealth. But the answer is, as in most things with personal finance, it depends. Does Daniel spend up to that very large income, or even does he go over and into debt, sending his kids to private school and paying for that fancy car and that big house? And does Martina actually, even though her salary is smaller, does she save some of it? If she does, she's building wealth and he's not. On the other hand, maybe Daniel is still socking away a good amount of money, and maybe Martina isn't. It really depends. What you do, not always, but often what you do with your money is more important than how much you make. So, but again, this isn't always the case. If you are not making enough to put food on the table, you're not making enough to pay for the necessities, then that's an income problem. But if you're making enough to have that little cushion, and hopefully you're all moving in that direction, getting to there, where you'll be able to breathe a little bit and have a little bit of extra, what you do with your money can be more important than how much money you make. So talking about what you do with your money, does your spending align with your values? Often spending doesn't, whether you have a lot of money or you don't. So what do I mean by this? Often we spend by default. We spend the way everybody else spends. Instead of thinking about what's really important to us, where do we want our money to flow? So I'd like to play a little game. And in this game, you're going to need a piece of paper. And on the left side of the paper, you'll number it 1 through 8, and then either fold it in half or put a line down the middle. And on the right side of the paper, number it 1 through 4. All right. So I'll give you just a couple of seconds if you don't have a piece of paper to go grab one piece of paper and a pencil. And when we play this game, there is no right answer or wrong answer. It really is a question of what's important to you. I am going to show you 2 different things. And what I want you to do is think about which one pulls you more. Don't think about it for too long. Just whichever one grabs you, the one on the left or the one on the right. Let's start. What's more important to you, travel or a nice car? Whichever one pulls at you, again, no right or wrong answer. In number 1 on the left-hand side, write that down. Either travel or a nice car. Okay. Number 2, experiences with family or friends, or gifts for my people. Am I a gift giver, or do I just really want to go, have good experiences? Which one would I rather spend money on? Put that one in number 2 on the left side. Okay, giving to charity or church, or expressing my creativity. So maybe you're a musician or an artist and you want to spend money on art supplies. Or is it more important to you to give to charity or to support your church or synagogue or mosque? What pulls you more? That one goes in number 3. All right, number 4, having a nice home or freedom to do as you please. Okay, which one pulls at you? That's number 5. Number 6, feeling financially secure or doing work I love. Now, I want you to notice that some of these, if you get one, it doesn't mean that you don't get the other. You can have both, but which one would you rather put your resources towards? Feeling financially secure or doing work you love? Okay. Number 7, education or self-improvement or adventure. Which one pulls at you? Nice clothes or high quality food? Are you a foodie? Do you like to buy organic and really high quality food? Or would you rather spend your money on clothes? All right. And then finally, attending arts or sports events or clubbing and partying. Which one's more important to you? No right or wrong answer. So maybe you love music and you love going to concerts, or you're a big football fan and you want to go to the football game all the time, or you like to go partying. Either way. All right, so now you have a list of 8. Whoops, now you have a list of 8. I'm going to call out some numbers and I want you to do the same thing, but on the right side. So the first numbers are number 1 and number 8. Look at what you wrote in number 1 and look at what you wrote in number 8. Which one pulls you more? And put that in number 1 on the this side, on the right side here. Okay, now look at number 2 and number 7. Which one pulls you more of whichever one you wrote in that one? All right, number 3 and number 6, and put that one in number 3. And number 4 and number 5. Okay, so now you have a list of 4. Now, these are just things that I randomly made up. You may have things that are super important to you. Maybe you love to fish. You know, maybe fishing is super, super important to you. And that's where you want your money to flow. But the point is to start thinking about what's really important to you. And that's where you want, when you have a little bit of extra money, that's where you want to start having that money flow. And you might get some pushback because friends, family, society might say, you have to spend money the way everybody spends money. But you can be intentional. You can make a plan for your money and put your money towards a life you really want to live. It's called values-based spending. Spend enthusiastically on those things you value highly, or save fiercely for them, and slash spending on everything else. You know, just because everybody else has a fancy car or gets a new car every 3-4 years doesn't mean you have to. You can drive an old car that will last forever if you take care of it, if you want your money to go in the direction that makes you lead a fulfilling life. Okay, so let's just talk a little bit more about intentional versus default spending. So default spending might be, I see a sale, I'm saving money. So if you spend $50 on a sweater instead of $100, it's a half off sale. I've saved $50. And I always say, no, you really haven't. You've spent $50. You haven't saved $50, you've spent $50. If you really need the sweater and it's something you had your eye on, then fabulous when it goes on sale. But a lot of people say, oh, I'm great. You know, I'm saving so much money because I see the sales. Think about what you really want and what you really need. And not just because something's on sale. It doesn't mean you've saved money. It means you're actually spending money. And, you know, the marketers are very good. They try to get your money in any way they can. And those sales are meant to pull you in. Oh, 20% off, 30% off, but you're still spending money. And if you need the item, fabulous. If you don't, then you're wasting your money. Subscriptions. A lot of people have a lot of subscriptions. It's a big thing today. Netflix, Hulu, Stars, Disney, you know, all of those. Look at what you really use and what adds value to your life. Do it on a monthly basis. Go through everywhere your money is going. Cut out the things that aren't, you know, that Marie Kondo thing, sparking joy. Cut out the things that aren't making you happy or leading you towards where you want to be. Groceries, you don't have to buy groceries by default. Of course, you have to buy groceries. Everybody needs to eat, but you don't necessarily need to eat the way don't necessarily need to buy the way your mother bought food or the way your father bought food. You can choose maybe a healthier diet, or you can choose what you want to do. You can choose to shop at discount grocery stores like Aldi. You can choose rather than doing it by default. Then another common one is grooming, like haircuts and nails and things like that. Is that really where you want to spend your money? If it is, fantastic. That's great. If it's not, maybe you can do your nails at home, or you can trim your own hair, or, have a friend trim their hair, you trim your hair, you trim their hair. So there are these ways to really think about how to save money and where you want to spend money. All right, let's talk about the 3 most important practices for building wealth at almost any income level. Again, if you're at subsistence, where you don't know where the next meal is coming from, that's different. And we're going to talk about income in a little bit. But if you can manage your life so that you have even a tiny bit extra, then this really becomes important. And if you don't take away anything else I say tonight, I would love for you to take away these 3 things. Number 1, spend less than you make. I know that can sound really hard. Inflation, student loan debt, the cost of rent, the cost of treatments. Everything's expensive. And I know that it's so easy for somebody to say, spend less than you make. But even seriously, even if you're saving $5 a month or $10 a month, you are building. You're starting to build. So really look at your spending and see if there's a way that you can spend less than you're bringing in. The second practice is pay yourself first. So what does this mean? What most people do is they look at all of their expenses. So money comes in, they pay all their bills, they buy the food, they buy whatever they need to buy, and then whatever's left over, that's what they save and invest. Often, there's nothing left over. Instead, I'd like you to flip that. Pay yourself first. Any money that comes in, figure out what percentage or what amount, again, even $5, that you want to save, and save that first. And then figure out how to get all the bills paid with whatever is left. That gets you into the habit and the practice of saving money. And then the third is, and again, this is maybe for down the road, and it's okay if it doesn't start when you're 20, but invest early and often. So let's look at some of these things. Remember Martina, our public defender? She was making $70,000 a year. Here's her budget. So her total monthly take-home pay is $4,730. Rent is $1,500. I think this is getting a little old. I have to update these numbers. In the past year or two, rents have gone way, way up. So let's just go with it though. Okay, so food, $1,600, student loan repayment, $300 a month, $500 for her kids' activities, cell phone, utilities, gas and maintenance for the car, clothes, and then entertainment. So like Netflix and things like that. So I have a question for you. Again, I'll take a quick look at the chat. What's missing from her budget? What's missing from her budget? Anybody have any ideas about something that's missing Savings, investment, retirement. Yes. Yes, she's not paying herself first. She has no line item there for savings. I mean, she might not even be ready to invest, but just putting something into a bank account, putting an emergency fund aside every month. So where could she cut back a little bit? Maybe she doesn't have to spend $150 a month on clothes. You know, maybe she can cut back there. Maybe she can cut back the food a little bit. But there are places to figure out where to get, as I said, even a little bit of money to start that path of building wealth. So let's talk about investing. And we're just going to do this quickly because I know that that may be in the future for a lot of you. But let's look at this. Market trends over time. So this goes all the way back to 1800 and goes up to 2020. Now we know it dropped in 2020 and then it's gone back up again. But what is the general trend of the market? Up. So here we have the Great Depression, boom, the crash, but then it went back up again. And look at here's 2008, boom, crash. People lost a lot of money. But what if somebody at this point started freaking out and pulling their money out and saying, oh, the stock market's too scary? They would have lost out on all these gains, right? So I'm just suggesting if you have some extra money, and there are places where you can invest just a little bit, do a little bit of research. Don't necessarily invest in individual stocks. You want to maybe look at an index fund. We're not going to go into the ins and outs of investing now, but you can do your research and start. If you've built up an emergency fund, you can start putting a little bit aside as an investment to start building up. It's going to go up, it's going to go down, it's going to go up, it's going to go down. But historically, the trend has been up. So I am not a fan of Dave Ramsey. I'm not sure any of you have heard of him. And again, he's not my cup of tea, but he has this table, which is just about the magic of compounding returns. So Ben starts investing at age 19 and invests $2,000 a year until he's 26, and then he stops. Arthur starts investing at 27 and invests $2,000 a year until age 65. But because of compounding returns, meaning that each year you're making money not just on what you invested, but what it's earned. See, it's not just making interest on the 2,000. Now it's making interest on 2,240. Now it's another 2,000, but it's making interest on that interest too. And if their investments earn 12% a year, which, I think 7% is the average over time. So this is optimistic, but who ends up with more? The one who stopped, only invested for a little bit of time when he was young and then stopped. Because of compounding, he ends up with more. This is not to say that in the future, when you're making more money, you can start investing and you don't have to stay up at night worrying about it. It's just to say, if you're able and you can start early, the magic of the market is time in the market. So if you can, that will help. Okay. Let's talk about income, the income side of the equation. So the first thing I'd like to say, especially to all the women out there, is negotiate. So I have a friend who used to work in human resources for a biotech firm here in Boston. And she was the one who gave people the job offers and onboarded people. And she used to say how frustrated she was, how she wanted to just shake the women because she would give them a job offer and they would accept. Whereas the men, she would give them a job offer, they would negotiate, and they would start with higher salaries. So negotiate, please negotiate. Now, if it's your first job, and let's say it's a government job, you're not going to be able to negotiate because they have set pay, right? But if it's a job in the private sector and you do your research, you don't just go in and negotiate saying, oh, I'm wonderful, I'm fantastic. You really have to have some research behind you. You have to know what other people in that job make. You have to think about what special skills you might bring. But it's always worth negotiating. There's a woman named Tori Dunlop, that's Dunlop, and I highly recommend that you look her up on YouTube, or she has a podcast, and she has some YouTube videos about negotiating for your first job, and they're well worth watching. All right, another way to raise some money, let's say you can't work, or let's say you can only work part-time. You can still raise a little bit of side money, doing something you like doing something that you can do when you feel up to it, doing something that brings in a little bit of extra spending money, or a little bit of extra cash. So you could pet sit. You could, if you like thrifting, you can, find things at the thrift store and then resell them for hire. Takes a little practice to get to know what people will buy, but people make good money doing that. Mail delivery services. What are you good at that you're willing to devote a few hours to each week? So I know somebody who started a poop scooping business. This person goes into people's yards and scoops up the dog poop. Yuck, right? But she makes really good money. She is her own boss. She does it on her own time. She says it's very Zen-like. She's got her whole system down. And, what I'm saying is that ways to raise a little bit of extra money are only limited by the limits of your imagination. Okay, if you are at the point where you own a home or, a car, there are ways of renting things out that can also bring in some money. All right, so what if you're on SSI or SSDI? Then you're limited in terms of how much income you can bring in. So what can you do? You can apply for other assistance programs, food stamps, energy assistance, housing assistance. Consider applying for public housing. If your family has some money and wants to support you, there's something called an ABLE account, Achieving a Better Life Experience account. If your disability began before age 26, this can reach $100,000 before it affects most benefits. And you can use it for almost anything: living expenses, prevention and wellness, housing, transportation, education. So that's something else to think about. Pursue work if you're able that doesn't exceed the allowable limits. I know it will be very limited. Getting a roommate. So this should not affect your benefits unless this person pays more than half of the rent. Careful meal planning, shopping at discount stores like Aldi. And if you live in a city, there are so many free entertainment possibilities. Use your library. In the summer, there are outdoor movies, concerts. This is harder if you live in a rural area, but if you live in a city, there's a lot to take advantage of that's free. And I'm sure you have many other ideas. Okay, so let's talk about what I call the wealth ladder. And that is starting at the beginning and then building up. What are the steps that you take to build up to having that cushion, having some investments, having some financial security? So step number one is budgeting. And whenever I mention this word budget, people go, oh, budgeting. And I hear it all. I'll never stick to a budget. It's restrictive. I can't do what I want to do. I don't want to have to track every penny. But I'm here to tell you that a budget does not have to be like that. It can be a simple spending plan where you put your money in different categories and you just, spend up to the limit of those categories. You don't have to restrict yourself. You can put a category in your budget called fun. You can put a category in your budget for, whatever it is we talked about before. What do we love doing? Again, let's say fishing. You can put a category called fishing in your budget. But it just is like a roadmap. Would you go on a trip without a GPS? Maybe you're the kind of person who likes to get lost. But a GPS will get us where we want to go a lot faster. And it's the same thing with the budget. And there are so many ways to budget. There are all sorts of apps out there that you can put on your phone or on your computer. You can do it on pencil and paper if that's the way you operate. Just do it. It doesn't really matter how you do it, but do it. There are some really wonderful budget apps that do cost a little bit of money. So there's one called YNAB, You Need a Budget, which some people swear by, and that's like, I don't know, $80 a year. There's one I use called Tiller, which is spreadsheet because I'm nerdy and I like spreadsheets and it's on my computer. And that's also like $79 a year. There's Mint, there are just so many. If you Google budgeting app, you'll get a zillion of them. Play around with some of the free ones and make a spending plan for yourself. Okay, so that's step number one, the B word, budget. Step number two, okay, you've got your budget in place. Now you're going to start building an emergency fund. And so a lot of people will budget and then something comes up and it completely blows the budget out of the water. And they say, what's the point? Why should I even bother when life is going to happen? Whatever it may be. Maybe the car needs tires. Maybe it's health related. Maybe it's whatever it is, life happens. And you'll be able to sleep at night. You'll feel so relieved if you actually have some money in the bank so that when one of these life emergencies happens, you have a fund to go to. You don't have to go to credit cards and build up all that incredible interest that they charge. It's highway robbery with credit cards. So you'd rather just pull from your own savings. So what we usually say is to shoot for covering 3 to maybe 6 months of expenses. But if you're not there yet, that's fine. Shoot for building up $500 in your emergency fund. Shoot for building up $1,000 in your emergency fund. I heard a very specific number that somebody came up with that, will cover most emergencies. And it was something like $2,567 or some crazy number like that. But whatever you feel comfortable, put that, pay yourself first and put some of that money aside so that you're building up that emergency fund. So number one, budget. Number two, emergency fund. Okay. Wealth ladder number 3. If you get a job for a company that offers a 401k, and the 401, or sometimes it's called 403B if it's a nonprofit or a school district or something like that, and they offer a match, take it. So what is this? A 401k is simply a retirement savings plan. And it's tax advantaged, meaning that you don't have to pay taxes right now on the part that you put into it. You will later when you retire, but right now you don't have to pay taxes on that part. Or if this gets complicated, I have a whole webinar on what's an IRA? What's a Roth IRA? What's a 401k? So we're not going to get into the weeds right now. But if your company offers this benefit, meaning that let's just say you make $100 a week, just to make it easy. You can choose to put $10 into this 401k. You can't take it out. I mean, there are ways to borrow against it. You can't take it out until retirement age. There are some exceptions for things like buying a house and things like that. But that's retirement money. And so if you're saving some of this money, some companies offer something called a match. And the match just means they say, if you take 10% is pretty high for most companies. Let's say if you take 5% of your salary and you put it into this 401k, we'll give you 5%. Free money as a benefit. And so many people don't enroll because it's complicated, they think. And, oh, when I get a job, so much paperwork is thrown at me. Enroll in your 401k at least up to the match. Otherwise, you're throwing away free money. Okay, so budget, emergency fund, contribute to your 401k if you work for a company that offers one, at least up to the match that they offer. Not all companies offer a 401k. Not all companies offer a match. Okay, step number 4, now you have a choice. So if you're doing those 3 things, you're budgeting, you've got your emergency fund, and you're contributing to your 401k, at least up to the match. If you have debt, particularly credit card debt, or maybe a car loan, but particularly credit card debt, which often the interest on credit cards can be 20%, 25%. I've seen almost 30%. It's crazy. It's a lot of interest that they're charging you. So if you have some extra money now, you can start throwing it at that credit card debt and get it paid down. Or you can do 2 things at once. You can work towards paying off that debt and invest in tax-advantaged accounts, in addition to the 401k. And those are called IRAs, either a traditional IRA or a Roth IRA. Some people hate debt. They're like, I don't want to even think about investing anything until my debt is gone. So then you want to pay down that debt. But some remember that Ramsey sheet where the guy invested for like 6 years and then didn't invest anything else, and he ended up with more money. The amount of time that you're in the market, the amount of time that you invest is going to make a difference down the road for how much you have. So some people don't want to miss the opportunity to put some money into investments. So if you have debt, you want to get rid of it. I'm not necessarily talking about student loans, and I'm not necessarily talking about a mortgage. Those are kind of in a different category. I'm really talking about high interest debt, credit card debt. So some people want to pay off their student loans as quickly as they can. That's great. If you have a little extra money and you feel that way, do it. Okay. Step number 5, you've got your budget, you've got your emergency fund, you're putting money in your 401k, you're putting money in a tax-advantaged account and paying off your debt. Once those things are taken care of, then it's time to think about what other life goals do I have that I want to start saving money for. Maybe you want to buy a home. Maybe it's education. Maybe it's travel. Maybe it's financial independence. You just don't want to be tied to a 9-to-5. What's your goal? Remember, we talked about your particular values. You have to figure out what it is that you want to do. That's step number 5, to start saving for some of those life goals. And then step number 6, once those things are taken care of, is investing more. And you can invest not just money, in the stock market. We call it a brokerage account. If you've already maxed out your tax advantaged investments, there's only a certain amount of money you can put in an IRA. And if you've gotten to that level and you still want to invest more, then you can open what's called a brokerage account, and those investments are taxed. You can invest in yourself. What does that mean? More education, more training for specific skills, whatever it may be. Or maybe you want to buy some real estate. Maybe you like the idea of being a landlord, or maybe you want to start a business. So those are all things that you can do to invest in yourself once those basic steps are taken care of. Okay, that was a lot of talking, and I would love to take some questions. So let's see. I see one question here. I'm lucky to finally have a great job that offers a 401k match, and I'm putting in the max. Yay! Because I feel very behind in building my retirement. What else can I do to increase my retirement savings? You can have a 401k maxed out. Congratulations. That's great. And open an IRA, either a Roth IRA or a traditional IRA. Depending on how much money you make, there are rules about that. Some people make too much money, but I think you can still put money in a Roth IRA. Don't quote me on that. I'm a financial coach, not a financial planner, so I can educate people about these things, but I can't give specific advice about where to put your money. But I would definitely look into either a Roth or a traditional IRA as the next place to save for retirement. Another way that some people save for retirement is kind of a roundabout way. And that is if you have what we call a high deductible health insurance plan. You can open something called a health savings account, an HSA. And you don't have to use it or lose it. You don't have to use it up each year. It can collect tax advantaged year after year after year. And once you reach retirement age, guess what? You don't have to use it for medical things. So that's another way some people save for retirement. Okay, next question. I'm close to retiring, but never sure about when and how to retire. Never sure if my assets I have saved are sufficient and how to spend down in retirement. What can I do? Who can figure this out for me? So are you one such advisor? I work with a lot of people in this situation, mostly people who are thinking about, like, how do I budget for retirement? Should I sell my house? Should I downsize? What if I don't have enough money for retirement? And I work with people on that. You might want to talk to an advisor, a financial, and please only go to a fee-only financial advisor, because there are financial planners and advisors who are called fee-based or some other pay structure. And they get commissions for selling you insurance policies and annuities, and they may be totally well-intentioned, but they may have it in the back of their mind, oh, I really want to sell one more this month. So they may push something on you that you don't really need. So you can go to something called the XY Planning Network, and you can find a fee-only financial advisor. And it doesn't sound like you want a financial planner who's going to invest your assets or manage your money, but there are a lot of them who will ask you for all of your information, and they'll give you different scenarios. If you do this, this is how long your money will last. If you do that, that's how long your money will last. So that is what I suggest you do. If you want to email me, I'm happy to give you a couple of names of fee-only financial planners that I know and trust. But I think anybody on that XY Planning Network, you can Google it, on their list would be a good choice. Okay. Other questions, or let's look in the chat. Okay, I'm about to finish college. Yay, good for you. And will be living on my own for the first time. I eat out often and spend too much on food. Any advice? I love this question. And I work with people a lot on this very same thing. So I do have some suggestions. Number one, like budgeting, like anything else, if you can plan your meals, you will eat out a lot less. So that doesn't have to be intricate and take hours and hours. Just take a blank calendar. You can do it on your computer or you can do it in pencil. And even like 4, 5 nights a week, just write in things that are easy to cook and that you like eating. And then take that with you when you go grocery shopping so that you can buy the ingredients. Planning really cuts down on that. Oh, just got home from work. I'm so tired. I don't feel like cooking. Let's go out or let's dial up food. Because that's like $40 for 2 people to get takeout, depending on where you live. I live in the Boston area. Things are expensive. In other parts of the country, it might not be quite as expensive, but it's a lot of money to get takeout or to go to a restaurant. Save the restaurant for special occasions. It doesn't have to be once a year. Maybe it could be once a week. Maybe you have your Friday night, restaurant date. Another thing that you can do is when you cook, instead of making enough for one meal, double or triple the batch. Freeze the extra, freeze it in a couple of containers. And when you get that urge to get takeout or go to a restaurant, guess what? You can go shopping in your freezer. You can just open up the freezer and say, oh yeah, I did this last week or 2 weeks ago. Take it out, put it in the microwave, and there's dinner. And you've saved money there. So I would actually also strongly consider shopping at Aldi if you have one close by, or at some equivalent discount grocery store where you can get maybe not everything you need, but good food for a lot less. I had a running joke with my sister because she likes to shop at Whole Foods, and I send her little pictures of my 69-cent avocados that I get at Aldi. So, okay. What is my email? I will put it on the slide. There you go. It's right here. All right. Other questions? Anything else? Those were some good ones. Let's see. Nothing else at the moment. Okay. So if anybody has any questions that they didn't want to ask in the chat, or anything that I can help you with, feel free to send me an email. My email is right here, Debra@moneysmartforlife.com, and I'm happy to help. All right, I hope you found this helpful and enjoyable.
Thank you so much, Deb, and everyone that was able to join today. I know I learned a lot, so I hope everyone else did too. And we look forward to 2 more webinars coming up from Deb on budgeting, and a lot more great information coming our way.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Thank you. Have a great night.
Thank you. You too.